Welcome back to the Drew Dillman YouTube channel. We are at BWR California. And the big news with this race this year is that there is a massive course change. With the change in venue, we are no longer climbing double peak. Woo! Which is good because, as you might know, historically this race has finished up a massive climb, with the steepest pitch being right at the end of the race up a road called Double Peak. It was brutal, but this year that is not how the race ends. Instead, there's more gravel. Now that you know Double Peak doesn't happen at the end of this race, it completely changes the dynamic of the race, because now you know I don't have to save so many matches for the end of the race. You can be a little bit more risky with your efforts earlier in the race. Here goes Floyd Landis on the attack. John Borsellman attacks with about 1 mile before the first off-road sector, and this is a strategy that he's used before to get a buffer before the technical parts of the course to give himself a little bit of a head start. I initially go with him, but I reacted a little too late and a little too soft. I wasn't fully committed to jumping across to his attack, so I drift back and I end up back in the group. And in hindsight, I wish that I had committed a little bit more, because I think it would have saved me energy in the long run instead of trying to play catch up after not getting a great position into that first off-road sector. And it could have actually worked to my advantage, because had I entered the dirt sector with Borsellman and then dropped Borsellman, he'd pretty much clog up the trail for me, helping me to open up a gap and at least not have to surge so hard and go a little bit more my own pace during that first off-road sector. But instead, I don't enter that first off-road sector with that good of position and end up having to chase to catch back up to the leaders for over 20 minutes. Floyd Landis is caught. The course this year also included quite a bit more rough off-road sections, which meant more people considered it a gravel race instead of a road race with off-road sectors, which is usually how it's been treated in years past. The most obvious display of this was in tire choice. In years past, most riders opted for a wider road tire, like the Strada Bianca 36s I ran last year. However, this year, most riders were on 40s or 45s and opted for a more gravel-specific tire. This year, I went with the Pathfinder 40s. And right on cue, John Borsellman is on the side of the trail with either a crash or mechanical or flat or something. He ends up DNFing, but this is becoming a recurring theme in all of my videos. And John, if you're watching this, I know some really good mountain bike specific coaches at Ignition Coach Co that could help you improve your handling skills. And heck, I'll even give you $100 off your first month. And with the double Dizzle kibitz, number 20, don't ignore your weaknesses, and number 11, hire an Ignition coach. And sure enough, there's a gap to the front group, and I've done this race enough, and I've missed the front group enough in this race that I am not content to just sit here and watch them right away. So I lighted up on this steep uphill section right before a really big downhill in hopes of bridging up to those leaders before the next paved section. I link up with a few other riders and we are dedicated to the chase. Now this takes about 26 minutes with a normalized power of 335 watts or 0.92 intensity factor and an average heart rate of 185. This was not an easy bridge, but we are successful and we catch those leaders right as we're entering in the next dirt sector, Lemon Twistenberg, and like a doofus, I go into that section in dead last. In this really long dirt section, this lead group gets blown to shreds and I find myself chasing with Russell Finsterwald with about 6 or 7 riders up the road, and we do end up making the catch before the next paved section. And for a few moments there, it was pretty cool to be riding in this front group, having looked around and seen 4 previous winners: Matt Beers, Alexei Vermeulen, Russell Finsterwald, and Pete Stetina. But soon after we catch this lead group, we hit the biggest climb on course, which is a 5-mile paved climb, and basically at the bottom of that climb, I end up gapped off of the leaders, but I keep them just in sight for the first half of the climb, but then not being able to bridge that gap, end up deciding to go my own pace, trying to avoid a full detonation.
That's the family. We're Graham, we're podcast, we're assistant, man.
And to give you an idea of how hard this climb was, it took about 22 minutes with a net normalized power of 347 watts, which is 0.96 intensity factor given my FTP. My average heart rate is 188 and it tops out at 196. This is the highest heart rate I've seen in a long time. Dizzle Kibitz number 19, pacing is dead. Daxton and Finsty end up catching me, and we end up working quite well together for the next long while. About halfway through the race, we end up catching the best looking guy in gravel, Lance Haydet. When I ask him how he's doing, he gives me a haggard look and says, "Dude, I'm dying." But then he proceeds to smash the next climb, and I find myself dangling on the back of this group, barely hanging on, hoping that I can stay with this group of 4 and solidify a top 10. And all I can think when I'm in this group with Lance Haydet, Russell Finsterwald, and Daxton Marckx is that there is absolutely no way that their heart rate is as high as mine, or that their effort level is as high as mine. And this is just the reality of racing with people who are more talented than you are. You're gonna have to put out a bigger effort to go the same speed. And I feel confident saying that because Lance, Daxton, and Russell all have big results to back up their race history, whereas I just have a long list of mediocre results. With only 5 guys up the road, it seemed it might be possible that we could be racing for a top 5 podium position if 1 or 2 of those riders from the lead group completely blew up and we caught them. But those hopes are diminished when a big group of 10 riders end up catching us on the next paved section with the likes of Peter Vakic, Julian Gagne, and Griffin Easter. Now, me and Julian were actually sharing a bedroom at our host house, and so the battle for bedroom bragging rights is now fully on. Daxton Marckx, who, during this race, told me that he was a handling wizard, nearly slides out on this paved descent. It was kind of scary. We turn on to this dirt road, and about a mile after that, we're going to enter into a narrow single track section. Now, it is crucial for me to be at the front of the group going into that trail section, because with a group this big, this late in the race, gaps are certainly going to open. And if I want to finish near the front of this group, I have to position well, because we are still racing for 6th place. I'm about mid-pack, and my 3 compatriots who I had spent most of the race with, Daxton, Lance, and Russell, are the top 3 riders, and I was wishing that I was up there with them, but I do manage to stay with the leaders through this trail section. However, I am starting to feel quite fatigued, and the pain is starting to settle in. And it's not long after that that I end up gapped off the back of this group. Dizzle Kibitz number 6, eat more carbs. At this point in the race, I was a little bit behind my nutrition plan or the carb intake that I had set out for myself, and I knew that this had something to do with the reason I was hitting the wall. It also doesn't help that I had spent the first 3 hours of this race well over my pacing strategy for a race this long, with heart rates in the 180s and 190s, way more than I would have liked. Here's a chart to give you a visual of my power and heart rate throughout each hour of this race. The blue bars are showing you my intensity factor with the power above that, and then the red bars are showing you my average heart rate per hour. The main thing that I want to point out is how hard I went early in this race. From the time we hit the first dirt section until we were caught by that big group of 10 riders, I was riding well over the pace that I should have been, with a normalized power of 317 or 0.87 intensity factor for nearly 3 hours. My average heart rate during this time was 182 with a max of 196. It's safe to say I had burnt some matches. And I'm not just telling you all this to make excuses. I'm telling you this to give you the facts. And the fact is I need a little bit more durability and a little bit more fitness so that I can go this hard early in the race and not be riding at such a high intensity factor and burning so much energy in the first half of the race, so that I have some energy left in the tank for the end of the race. One of the new parts of the course included these really sharp uphill switchbacks, and the only way that you could really ride these switchbacks was to stick out your hand, grab the post, and whip around that thing full cyclocross mode. And there were a lot of them. Near the end of the last dirt section, only about 7 miles from the finish, there was an optional route. You could opt to go further, stay on your bike and ride through a creek, or you could opt to turn and go up this really steep hill that forced you to dismount your bike and run. I opted for the run up, knowing that it was about a minute faster than the creek crossing, and I went full cyclocross mode once again, shouldering the bike all the way up the hill. The spectators at the top even told me that I was the fastest guy they had seen go up that run up section all day. So while I may not have won the race, I won the run up. I'll take it. By taking the run up, I actually end up passing this Bear Devo kid Luke from Georgia, who opted for the creek crossing. So I pass him, he ends up catching me, tries to blow past me, it doesn't work, I get on his wheel, and we're pretty much dead set on soft pedaling all the way to the finish, where we're gonna sprint it out. Dizzle Kibitz number 4, always sprint. This is a race. We're not here to hold hands and cross the line. We're here to get the best place possible. So this kid knows I'm gonna sprint him, and I know he's gonna sprint me because we like to race our bikes. The last turn is pretty sketchy. It's on gravel and it's pretty high speed. And Luke makes a really fast last second pass going into that turn, and I'm hoping he's gonna slide out. But he doesn't, and because the sprint to the line is so short, there's no chance I'm coming around him, and he beats me. Well played, young Padawan. I finished in a time of 5 hours and 15 minutes with a normalized power of 292, which is 0.8 intensity factor, average heart rate 176, TSS 341, 4,700 kilojoules burned. All of this is good enough for 13th place overall. Next up, I've got a massive training block to prepare for the Unbound 200. Hashtag overtrain or bust. That's all I got for this video. See you in the next one.